Southern trees bear strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root. Black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees.
This is the old jail building. It's still standing.
86-year-old James Cameron remembers clearly what happened to him more than 70 years ago, August 6, 1930. The police stormed his family's house in Marion, Indiana. James was accused of murder and rape of a young white couple.
And that house was just shaking like that, like a storm had hit it when they knocked on the door. And my mother got up and opened the door. She said, "What is it?" Says, "What's the matter?" And they said, "Does James Cameron live here?" And she said, "Yeah, he's my only son." Said, "What's the matter? Is he in some kind of trouble?" And they wouldn't tell her. And she began to cry like a baby. And one of the police said, "Did you tell your mother what you and those boys did tonight?" I said, "We haven't done anything." He said, "The hell you haven't." He said, "You went out here and you raped a white woman and you shot a white man." I said, "I don't know anything about it." And I can see my mother standing there now in the doorway, silhouetted by the old kerosene lamp that we had in the house. We didn't have electricity. And she's standing there wringing her hands and crying like a babe. And she's asking the police to take her instead of me for something I had done.
The Baltimore County village of Rockland, a fateful encounter set off a tragic chain of events.
At 6 o'clock, April 4th, 1885, Katie Gray had just gone to the railroad station with her sister. Katie Gray was coming back from the railroad station when she met Howard Cooper. And she had apparently known Howard Cooper before. They had words. Katie turned, started walking home. Howard Cooper followed Katie Gray into the woods where something happened.
It's impossible to know the truth of what happened that day. Cooper had a history of harassment. Both later testified that Cooper did accost the girl.
After about 2 hours, Katie Gray's dog, Bruno, comes running out barking and presumably chases Howard Cooper away. Katie Gray runs back to her household, and her father is incensed. Her father very quickly figures out what happened. She probably mentions Howard Cooper's name, and within hours, Daniel Gray, Katie Gray's father, puts together friends, I think it's fair to call them a mob, who scour the countryside looking for Howard Cooper.
In January 1925, a 16-year-old white schoolgirl was walking to school in Tishomingo County, Mississippi, when she was stopped by a black man with a gun. She was ordered to go to the nearby woods where she was raped. Robert Milton was pronounced guilty of rape in a one-day trial held behind closed doors and sentenced in 1 day to be hung. Robert Milton's last words was that he was innocent before God. The public, unable to hear the testimony or the trial, but only hearing Robert's passionate words, many people through the years in the county believed that he was innocent of this crime. Now, this is a statement from a lady who is now in her 90s, but at the time was a 9-year-old girl who came with her mother to witness the hanging of Robert Milton. Well, it was very sad. I was only 9 years old, and my mother took me to see the hanging. And back then they let kids see such things, and it was so tragic that it stayed in my mind always.
This was an all too frequent scene in the United States. At about the same time, a black pregnant woman, Mary Tyler, demanded justice for the lynching of her husband. What transpired is described in Leon Litwack's essay, Hellhounds.
For making such a threat, a mob of several hundred men and women determined to teach her a lesson. After tying her ankles together, they hung her from a tree head downward. Dousing her clothes with gasoline, they burned them from her body. While she was still alive, someone used a knife ordinarily reserved for splitting hogs to cut open the woman's abdomen. The infant fell from her womb to the ground and cried briefly, whereupon a member of this Valdosta, Georgia mob crushed the baby's head beneath his heel. Hundreds of bullets were then fired in Mary Turner's body, completing the work of the mob. The Associated Press, in its notice of the affair, observed that Mary Turner had made unwise remarks about the execution of her husband, and the people, in their indignant mood, took exception to her remarks as well as her attitude.
Because of the rapid growth in the African American population and employment situations at the meat packaging plants, racial tension began to build in Omaha. This tension culminated in the summer of 1919, when one plant worker in particular met a horrible fate.
This was the period of red hot summer. This was the period where about that what it is, you'd already had the riots in St. Louis, other places. And now you're having them in Omaha. What happened was they had a woman say that she had been molested or had been sexually abused by a black man. And that's all that needed to be said.
On September 25th, 1919, Agnes Lobeck identified 40-year-old Will Brown as the man who attacked her. Brown was then arrested and taken to the Douglas County Courthouse. Before Brown was even identified, a civic storm was already brewing in Omaha due to a series of inflammatory stories published in the Omaha Bee and struggles for political power between racketeer Thomas Dennison and Omaha's mayor Edward Smith.
The people of Springfield have restrained themselves well. They have given strong evidence of the law-abiding character of the city by their calmness in the face of an event which would have developed the mob spirit in many other communities.
Barely a month later, newspapers reported that a white woman had been raped by a, quote, Negro fiend. Mrs. Mabel Hallam said George Richardson was her assailant. Sheriff Charles Warner arrested Richardson and placed him in the county jail, where Joe James also awaited trial. Springfield's white community felt violated.
That was one of the greatest fears, especially on the part of white men, is that black men would want, in a sexual sense, their women.
The significance of African Americans being accused of murder and rape at this time is that it really struck at the very core of what whites believed about African Americans. Whites perceived them as being criminals in their behavior. So the murder and rape really seemed to confirm the worst of what whites felt about African Americans.
In the 1920s and 30s, postcards depicting the lynchings were popular among the white middle class of the South.
All okay, and would like to get a post from you. Bill, this was some raw bunch. Well, John, this is a token of a great day we had in Dallas. March 3rd, a Negro was hung for an assault on a 3-year-old girl. I saw this on my noon hour. I was very much in the bunch. You can see the Negro hanging on a telephone pole. This is the barbecue we had last night. My picture is to the left with a cross over it. Your son, Joe.
The sadism that characterized these lynchings knew no bounds. A simple killing was not enough.
The execution became public theater, a participatory ritual of torture and death. a voyeuristic spectacle prolonged as long as possible for the benefit of the crowd. Newspapers on a number of occasions announced in advance the time and place of a lynching. Special excursion trains transported spectators to the scene. Employers sometimes released their workers to attend. Parents sent notes to school asking teachers to excuse their children for the event. Returning from one such an occasion, a 9-year-old white youth remained unsatisfied. "I have seen a man hanged," he told his mother. "Now I wish I could see one burned."
Pastoral scene of the gallant South, the bulging eyes and the twisted mouth, scent of magnolia, sweet and fresh. Then the sudden smell of burning flesh.
O Lord, thou hast pleaded the causes of my soul, thou hast redeemed my life. O Lord, thou hast seen my wrong. Judge thou my cause. Thou hast seen all their vengeance and all their imaginations against me. Thou hast heard their reproach, O Lord, and all their imaginations against me. The lips of those that rose up against me, and their device against me all the day. Behold, their sitting down and their rising up. I am their music. Render unto them a recompense, O Lord, according to the work of their hands. Give them sorrow of heart, thy curse unto them. Persecute and destroy them in anger from under the heavens of the Lord. Rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom, that dwellest in the land of Uz. The cup also shall pass through unto thee. Thou shalt be drunken, and shalt make thyself naked. The punishment of thine iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion. He will no more carry thee away into captivity. He will visit thine iniquity, O daughter of Edom. He will discover thy sins. Chapter 5.